Okay, looks like everyone has their seats. First of all, I'd like to welcome you to City Hall tonight. This is one in a series of public forums that we'll be conducting on various subjects over the next year, once a month. Make sure that you sign in on the sign-in sheet so you can be in the loop and informed on upcoming events and other forums that we'll be doing. So also to let you know that tonight's forum will be videotaped. We're also going to be broadcasting this on our YouTube channel. So if you're familiar with the internet, make sure you check it out. Make sure you send it to your friends that weren't able to come here tonight. We're trying our best to keep the citizens of Waukegan informed on hot topics and keep them informed on things that affect them on a daily basis. And if you have any ideas that you'd like us to cover in terms of our public forums, make sure you let me know at the end of the meeting tonight. So that's a housekeeping issue. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Sabanjan to say a couple words.
Thanks, David. I want to thank Ezell Robbins and Susanna Figueroa for working so hard to help put this together, and I appreciate the presence of all of the institutional partners that are here this evening. This is something that I've been kind of working on trying to get put together for about 4 or 5 months now, actually, and it's something I felt that was at least some small measurable response to the crisis that we're experiencing, not just in Waukegan, but across the entire country, relative to individuals losing their homes, struggling with their mortgages, and we just wanted to be able to provide information and some resources to people so that they know what their options are. And so I'm very happy to have you here this evening, and as David said, that if you have friends that couldn't make it, keep looking for this to appear on YouTube within several weeks, and then if you're here tonight and there's something that maybe that you didn't quite catch or in your notes, or maybe you're not sure what you heard, you'll be able to go back and review the presentation that way. So without further ado, I will introduce Mr. Ezell Robbins. He is our Director of Community Development Block Grant, and he is this evening's one of your 2 hosts for the evening. Thanks, Ezell.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Master Bungeon, for allowing us this opportunity, and certainly we are grateful for your foresight in leading this community as our mayor. I just wanted to cover a couple of housekeeping items quickly. If you go out the doors, the hallway on the right, bathrooms are down that way. There are also some vending machines in case you need a drink or something behind that wall. What I'm going to do right now is go ahead and bring to you the speakers for tonight. Certainly we want to thank all of them for taking the time out of their busy schedule coming out to share with the citizens of Waukegan. First, we're going to have Doug Crookham from the Affordable Housing Corporation of Lake County. Doug is in the Lending Service Manager for the Affordable Housing Corporation. Then we'll have a presentation by Lisa Bennett, who is from the Office of the Attorney General of the state of Illinois. Then we will have a presentation from the Rogers Law Group, I believe. Is that right, Rick? We will have a presentation from them, and also you'll see some persons sitting in the back of the room at tables. Those are lenders. We have someone from Consumers Cooperative Credit Union. We have Mr. Greg Megatz. I don't think Greg is at a table. And then we have some representatives from the North Chicago Community Service Bank. Is that Cassandra I see back there? Yes, Cassandra Slade. And Charles Masterson from the Great Lakes Home Mortgage. Please help me welcome to begin this presentation, Mr. Doug Crookham. Also, immediately after the presentation, we will have a time frame for questions and answers. So if you have some questions, if you don't think you're going to remember, maybe you might want to jot them down. Certainly we want you to leave here tonight with as many of your questions answered as possible, and hopefully moving in a positive direction. Thank you.
Thanks, Ezell. Good evening, everyone. Glad everyone's here tonight. I've got a lot to go through, and I'm going to go through it in a short amount of time. Again, my name is Doug Crookham. I'm the Lending Services Manager at Affordable Housing Corporation. And our organization, we do a lot of things. I know a lot of you are here to find out more about foreclosure alternatives, keeping up on your mortgage payment, but we do have really a bunch of divisions, and I think there might be something for everybody, whether that applies to you or not. Just a little bit about us. We were Affordable Housing Corporation was founded in 1995, and really our main goal is to try to create as many affordable opportunities for everybody in Lake County. We service the entire county, and again, we're really out to establish partnerships with realtors, lenders, banks, investors that are trying to rebuild the community, municipalities such as City of Waukegan. So we really work with everybody, and anytime there's an opportunity to help the citizens of Lake County, we're typically conjuring up a program to do that. Just to give you an idea about obviously our main, probably our busiest division right now is our mortgage default counseling. What we do is we do provide classes in English and Spanish, really to offer up as much information as possible what your options are. And I'm going to let Rick and his group discuss specifically what those options are. But we are a HUD-certified nonprofit agency. A lot of lenders will refer their clients to us for assistance in helping them work out options. Our 2-hour class, we really compile a ton of information in, and again, it's free of charge. So if anybody's looking just to kind of get some general information on what's out there, what programs your lender has to assist, I highly encourage you to contact us and attend one of those classes. We offer them on weekends and weekday nights to kind of accommodate everybody's schedule. From there, once you attend our group counseling, you do have the option to enroll in individual counseling. And at that point, you would actually work with one of our housing counselors that can help intervene with your lender and just kind of help with the communication process to kind of work as your ally and your advocate. So I know it's a tough process to take on by yourself, so we're kind of there to help support. We don't do any modifications or anything. That's ultimately up to the lender and obviously the assistance of a good attorney such as Rick. But we'll also give you information regarding rights and options, education on how the process works, what to expect, kind of know what your time frames are and what's going to happen next. And then we'll also help in creating a budget, which is very important. When you contact your lender, that's one of the first things they're going to ask for, is they're going to want to get a good look at your income and expenses. So we'll kind of help you do that. And then we'll also refer you to any other organizations within the county that might be able to assist. And ultimately supporting a plan of action, setting you on track to keep your home if that's the goal, and if that's not an option, that we also will assist in a transition out of your home. So that's pretty much the gist of our default counseling. I also wanted to talk about, again, some of our other areas that we help out. One thing I felt would be important tonight is to kind of discuss our mortgage assistance program, which is primarily there to help first-time home buyers purchase a home that might not otherwise be able to. The reason for that is it's a good way to help market properties. If you're looking to sell your home, it's really a good niche to bring people to be able to buy that wouldn't otherwise be able to. So we offer pre-purchase counseling for first-time home buyers to kind of help them along with the home buying process, to get qualified for a mortgage. We don't actually do mortgages, but we can help you kind of get to the point where you know what a lender's looking for and getting you qualified. We also offer home buyer education classes, which really just gives a comprehensive look at what that process entails. And then another area where we just rolled out this month is a road to home ownership. This is more designed for longer term counseling for people that don't know where they stand. They know they want to buy, but they don't know what it takes to do that. It's a free service. And again, all these services are free. The only thing that we charge for is a credit report, if that's something that you want us to do. And then another new program is the rental housing support. We've actually teamed up with landlords throughout the county that have units available, single family housing, apartments, and we're creating affordable opportunities for people to rent those. It's for very low to mid-income clients. And then we also do rehab lending. Current homeowners that need repairs to their home, improvements, that don't have the means to get those repairs done, we'll actually offer zero interest deferred payment loans that don't have to be paid back until somebody sells the home. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, again, our mortgage assistance programs. These are actually new programs. We just rolled these out in November, so we're very excited to have the opportunity. Because we're a nonprofit organization and we're HUD-certified, we do have the ability to help with the down payment in the form of loans that are actually zero interest deferred payment. So we're giving you a loan, but you're not paying it back and we're not charging any interest on it. So in the Lake County program, a qualified first-time home buyer is going to receive 10% of the sales price up to $15,000 to use towards the purchase of the home. That can go towards down payment as well as settlement costs. The only thing that the buyer has to put in is 1% or $1,000, whichever is greater. And then again, the loans aren't due until the buyer sells the home, transfers title, or does a cash out refi. And that's available throughout the county. We have a second program, which is the Waukegan Reinvestment Program. And this program was designed mainly to help buyers of distressed properties. Now, a distressed property is one that's either bank-owned, has gone through a foreclosure, or is going through a foreclosure, or is in the process of a short sale. And with this program, we'll actually give a straight $10,000 of purchase assistance that is fully forgiven after 5 years. And it actually, if you see in the next slide, it'll actually, sorry, it's not on there. It forgives annually at the rate of 20%. So every year, 20% of that $10,000 goes away. So the goal is after 5 years, the buyer does not have to pay back that loan. Our North Chicago first-time home buyer program, an eligible first-time home buyer would get $8,000 in assistance, which again is fully forgiven after 5 years. Though there is obviously restriction on location, there's not a restriction on a distressed sale. So this can be a resale, new or existing. It does not have to be in a foreclosure process or short sale process. And again, the funds that are provided are zero interest deferred payment loans. We have a website, it's ahclc.org, and on this website you're going to find a wealth of information. We have our education class schedules, we have our default counseling schedules, we have all of our program guidelines, we also have enrollment forms. So if you're looking to enroll in our pre-purchase counseling, you can actually download those forms and either mail them to us or drop them by our office. So we really have a lot to provide. And again, I think that you're going to find something for everybody regardless of your situation. So that's all I have. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Doug. Our next presenter will be Lisa Bennett from the Attorney General's office. Come on, Lisa.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Lisa Bennett. I'm from Illinois Attorney General Lisa Madigan's office, and my title is Outreach Liaison for our housing program. We offer foreclosure prevention and assistance, as well as mortgage fraud complaints, and we look into things of that nature. So basically everything related to housing. What makes our office a little unique is that what the Attorney General's office does is twofold. First and foremost, our job is to protect the rights of the citizens of Illinois. And in doing that, we also get involved in looking into lending, banking, etc., which has kind of led us to filing suit against a number of lenders in the past, primarily mortgage companies. Countrywide, we joined in with other state attorney generals, and it ended up being a very large settlement that was national, $8.7 billion for predatory lending. As a result of that, our office was involved in creating a modification program to get those borrowers that were in those predatory loans out and to more stable and sustainable loans. As a result of that, we brought on counselors that are certified, and with the Foreclosure crisis, we've continued to offer those services, primarily with areas that are less served with counselors. Your agency here is actually doing an outstanding job and has a lot of great programs that I hope you'll take advantage of. But we do operate a homeowner helpline, which is available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and we're happy to answer any questions related to housing that we can. In the back of the room, you saw a couple of bookmarks that have our information, our website, as well as our homeowner helpline number here. So what we try to do is try to help homeowners understand a little bit more about what's going on with modifications, in terms of clarifying some of the things that maybe aren't very clear with their lender. And a big message that we really want to tell homeowners is do not give up. You know, if you go to your lender and you apply for a modification and they deny you, you should contact our office for a referral or another HUD-certified agency, but continue to try to get help. We find people that have someone advocating with them and for them are more successful. A lot of times the lenders, you call and you get a lot of different answers and, you know, directions, and we didn't get the paper and you got to mail it again, and, you know, it gets very frustrating. So what we try to do is try to help you navigate through that process and give you some sound advice to try to follow. So just tips on handling the modification, keeping track of when you make calls, continuing to make your trial payments even after the 3 or 6 month period is over. Little things like that. So I'll be here for a while to answer questions. Also on our website, a very good guide is our Illinois Mortgage Lending Guide. It's available in a PDF form on our website in English and Spanish, and I do have a couple of these in the back. We will be sending more to the city, so there should be some here available for you in the near future. But this gives you a lot of good information about resources that are out here, legal agencies that offer assistance at no cost, colleges, law schools that have free legal advice. You can give them a call and get information if you have some questions. Also, other HUD-certified agencies throughout the state. And also just information on what happens, some of the terms that you may hear some of your lenders talk about that maybe you don't know what they mean. So there's definitions here, information about a foreclosure timeline, information about where to go if you get summoned, what you should do, etc. So just a really good wealth of information in this booklet. So there's a few back here, and again, they are online. One more piece of information that I brought is actually part of our Every Cent Counts guide, which is actually a number of topics that probably come to mind or may come into play going through these economic times that we're going through. So not only information about mortgage and foreclosure, how to be careful, how to avoid some predatory things that are going on these days. There's a lot of scams, etc., some related to housing, some not, but just things to be careful of, and how to protect your credit, things of that nature, information about reverse mortgages, etc. So I will be here for a while to answer questions. Again, thank you for having me. Yes, House Bill 5762, I believe it is. We introduced legislation, I think in late November. With the budget, I'm not sure when it's going to come up, but it was introduced to the General Assembly to kind of corral and tighten the practices of servicers and lenders in reference to getting modifications. You know, clear-cut rules about what can be done, what can't be done. You know, we're finding some practices that we're not happy about. I'm sure most of you heard about the robo-signing issues with some of the larger lenders. Our office is, in partnership with the other 49 state attorney generals, investigating that presently. So there will probably be a little while before we have a report, but we will have something together soon. But as a result of what our office has seen through our homeowner helpline, as well as through a lot of events that we attend, we've offered legislation, hopefully to kind of, if you will, hold the feet to the fire of the servicers and the lenders that you're talking to in terms of giving you clear-cut information, sticking with it, not changing it, reasonable time frames, etc. So we're very hopeful that that legislation will get passed sometime this year. Thank you for mentioning that, because it is very important. So again, I'll be here for a little while to answer any questions that I can. I think we're going to go through everyone and then do question and answers. Is that correct? Okay. So in just a few minutes, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that I can. Thank you.
Certainly, we want to thank Doug and Lisa as they both bring a wealth of information and possibilities to avoid foreclosure. We're going to round the program off now with Mr. Rick Rogers and the Rogers Law Group. We're going to bring Rick to you, and he will then in turn present some of his team members. Rick.
Thanks, Giselle. We have a lot of information to cover, so I'll just jump right in. I'm from the Rogers Law Group. We're a local law firm here in Lake County, and all we do is home preservation and assisting distressed homeowners. That means we do loan modifications, we do foreclosure defense, bankruptcy, and short sales. I'm sorry. Is that better? Okay, can anyone hear me now? Okay. Can you go back one slide? I did want to introduce, we've got a couple of people that won't be speaking tonight. One is Margaret Cahill, another attorney from our office in back, and she is fluent in Spanish, and we have other paralegals who are fluent in Spanish. So if you'd like to speak to an attorney in Espanol, she can help you there. We also have Katie Lee Harrison here, who is our senior paralegal, and if you have any technical questions about process and loan modification, she's a good one to answer questions after the session is over. We give free initial consultations, as most law firms do, and you should take advantage of those. Now, if you're having problems making your mortgage payment, you've got a couple of different options. The main options, number one, is if you don't want to keep your home. First of all, you can sell or short sell. Short sell means to sell it for less than what is due on the mortgage. And I just want to say, I've been in real estate my entire professional career. The very best way to sell a house, if that's what you're looking to do, is with no money down. Now, Doug's got some programs whereby you can sell your home with no money down and at a significant discount. So if you're thinking about that option, even in today's economy, if you're selling a home with no money down, you've got a good opportunity to do that. So make sure that you, and particularly your realtor, are familiar with those programs if you are selling. Another option you have is to do nothing. This isn't really a foreclosure prevention. This is the opposite. This is foreclosure acceptance. But what I'd like you to know there is foreclosure in Illinois takes a long, long time, easily a year or 2 years. When that guy comes to your door and serves you with foreclosure papers, you probably have a solid year from that date before you have to move out of your home. Do not pack up and leave once you get those papers. You'll be doing a disservice to yourself, to your family, and to your neighborhood. Vacant properties are attractive nuisances. They attract kids, vandals, and criminals. Don't do that to your family. Don't do that to your neighborhood. There's no need. Don't go and pay rent somewhere when you can live in your home for free for a year. Now, if you take either one of these options, you need to consult an attorney to avoid a deficiency judgment. Once you lose your home, the bank can come after you for tens of thousands of dollars in deficiency, and that will be followed by a bill from the IRS. And so in order to avoid that, and in most cases you can, consult an attorney. Okay, if you want to keep your home, loan modification, that's really the plan. Get your mortgage modified so that now you can afford it. That's your goal. An affordable loan modification with a principal reduction, that is the ultimate goal. That means that the lender will actually reduce the amount that you owe. Now, and they'll make your monthly payment affordable. A few months ago, banks were not doing this. They just were not doing this. But today they are. Within the last month or so, they've started to embrace this principal reduction philosophy in the program. Last month, we received a principal reduction for one of our clients for almost $97,000. They took $97,000 off the mortgage. And that was done by Wells Fargo. Anybody here have a mortgage with Wells Fargo? Okay, well, that's really good news for you, because once a lender starts doing principal reductions, they have to maintain those same policies and procedures for every applicant. So if you get a good modification application in, and if your home is underwater, meaning that you owe more than the value of the home, then they have to consider you for a principal reduction. And in exchange for doing a large principal reduction, you'll have to make your mortgage payments on time for the next 3 to 5 years. But you will have an opportunity to actually regain some equity in your home under that situation. Okay, can I do it myself? Can I get my own modification? Yeah, you can, but there's about a 95% chance that you will fail. 95%. Only 1 in 10 applicants ever gets a permanent modification. And if you assume that half of those have help from an attorney or another advocate, that translates into a 95% failure rate for modifications if you try and do them on your own. It is by the way, and most of you probably know this, it is a difficult, aggravating, frustrating process, and I want you to know we feel your pain, because we call these banks every single day and we go through a lot of the same things you're going through. At any rate, some of you may say, well, I'm going to try it myself first, and then if I don't succeed, then I'll call an advocate or an attorney to help me. That is not a good idea. You are wasting too much precious time. Banks take, it seems like, forever to go through these applications and to review them and to finally make a decision. It is very common for someone to call us up and say, the lender, I've been working with them for a year, and they just called me yesterday and said, sorry, you've been denied. Oh, and by the way, your home is being sold at a foreclosure auction next week. Or worse yet, by the way, your home was sold at an auction last week. And don't laugh. That happens very often. Very often, you think you're going to get a letter before it's sold at auction? Very often, it does not. And if you've waited that long, I won't say it's too late, but you're now in a very difficult position, okay? Number one, you've got to get an attorney. Well, you almost have to get an attorney if your home's already been sold at an auction. And it's a difficult and a very risky proposition for you to get your house back. You've lost a lot of precious time. Also, HUD counselors are great. They're nice people. They're well-intentioned, but they are very, very busy. And if you want to get an appointment with a HUD counselor, it's not unusual for that to take 2 or 3 months. Now, if your house is being sold at an auction next week, chances are you're not going to be able to get in and see a HUD counselor. They are just that busy. Now, there's also other dangers in trying to do it yourself. The biggest danger is when you fill out the applications and submit them yourself, many times they're wrong, or the bank gets them wrong, which they often do. And if you, for example, get yourself on a temporary HAMP modification, a temporary plan, and then later the bank figures out that they did something wrong, then you will be denied a permanent modification. And in many times, there's a general rule that you get one shot at HAMP and that's it. And even if the bank did it wrong the first time, and that's the reason you are denied, you will not be able to reapply for a HAMP modification. Or, well, you'll be able to reapply, you just won't be able to be approved for it. And so that is a very big danger of doing it yourself. Again, many times when you try it yourself, the banks get it wrong and you pay the price for it. Fact is, even talking to the bank can be dangerous for you. They will call you, they will record the calls, and they'll ask you questions, and how you answer it may disqualify you. For example, one popular question is, are your financial problems temporary or permanent? Well, how many would say temporary? If I'm the bank, I'm calling you, and by the way, I'm recording this call. Are your financial problems temporary or permanent? How many think they're temporary? Okay, well, you just lost your Making Home Affordable modification. How many say permanent? The rest of you? Okay. Well, you've lost any other type of modification that you might have been considered for. As far as I know, there's only one good answer to that question, and that is, please call my attorney and don't call me anymore. But again, you have to be very careful. Child support or alimony, that's income for you. That can be considered for a loan modification. If they ask you if you get child support, should you tell them that you get child support? The law is you can tell them and they have to count it as income. Or you can not tell them and they can't count it. You can say, I get child support, but I don't want you to consider it. That's perfectly appropriate. Now, if you tell them that you get child support, and you get a modification, your payment will be higher. Your house payment will be higher. If you don't tell them you get child support, you may not have enough income to get a modification. So what do? Well, there's only one way to tell what you can do that is the best for you, and that is with the NPV test, the net present value test, which is kind of at the foundation, the center of the modification process. So what is an NPV test and why do I care? It is the final test that you must pass in order to get the modification. And it can answer many questions. If you take an NPV test before you submit your application, which is what I advise, then that will tell you if you qualify for a modification. This is so important because if you don't take the NPV test, you do not know if you qualify for a mortgage modification. And if you send an application in to the lender that doesn't pass the NPV test, you'll probably wait 3 to 6 months to find out that you don't pass the NPV test, and by that time it may be too late to do anything about it because you may be too deep in foreclosure. Also, the NPV test will tell you not only if you do not have sufficient income, it will tell you how much additional income you need to pass the NPV test. And you may very well find out that you only need $200 or $300 additional income per month. Well, where are you going to get $200 or $300 additional income? Who knows? Maybe Uncle Louie, who lives in the basement and helps you with utilities, maybe you can put him on a formal lease. That's very common. People ask, well, can I count my daughter's income because she works? Well, yes, you can count your daughter's income. Should you count your daughter's income? Only an NPV test can tell you that. So when you get qualified, or if you're seeking assistance for a modification, make sure and ask the question, do I pass the NPV test? And by the way, the Treasury is supposed to put their NPV test online. It's projected to come out within the next few months. So if you ask your attorney whether or not you pass your NPV test and he or she doesn't know what NPV stands for, well, you need to find a different attorney. Okay, when the bank says you don't qualify, that does not mean you don't qualify, okay? And as Lisa said, don't give up, and this is so important. Banks get it wrong all the time. Literally hundreds of homeowners have come to our office within the last couple of years and have been told that they did not qualify for a modification. 90% of those people now have a modification or will eventually get one. Banks get it wrong all the time. Why do they get it wrong all the time? I don't know, but there is credible evidence out there that, when I say banks, I mean mortgage servicers. There's credible evidence that the servicers make 10 times as much money if they can foreclose on your house as opposed to modify. To me, that is the only rational explanation as to the horrendous job that these large banks are doing on modifications. The only reason they're doing so bad is because they make so much money when you don't get a modification. Okay, so in summary, the loan modification process, don't try to work it out by yourself. Get help immediately. Talk to your HUD counselor. Talk to Lisa Madigan's office. There are a lot of free opportunities for you to get assistance with a modification. If those are not successful for you, then go out and find a good attorney. A good local attorney, by the way. Don't allow anyone from out of state to try and help you. Last year, Lisa Madigan made that against the law in most cases, particularly if you use anybody from out of state. Don't make sure they're not from California or Florida. And so, when the bank says not qualified, remember that does not mean you're not qualified. As was said earlier, don't give up. Don't give up. Okay, what did I miss? Oh, I have to leave you with one important tip, that if you have a checking or savings account where you have your mortgage, please understand that when you get behind in your mortgage, that bank may go in and empty your checking account. Okay, and they'll do that without telling you about it, without notice, and you'll wind up bouncing a whole bunch of checks for your car payments and groceries and utilities and who knows what, and you will not obviously be in a good financial position to replace that money. But understand that they do that. Is it legal? I could argue that, but one thing you can't argue is they do that. They will do that. So be careful about that. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to George Olsen. He's another attorney in our law firm. We were very happy to have George join us. George actually wrote the law. He's one of the co-authors of the Illinois Mortgage Foreclosure Law. And we feel like there's no better attorney to have on our team than the guy who wrote the law. So here he is, George Olsen.
Thank you, Rick. Everybody hear me? What I have to share with you is from the perspective of foreclosure defense. And it's necessarily going to be very basic, and I think what I'd like to do is make sure that I share with you some of the experiences I've had in representing homeowners and some of the traps for the unwary, if you will. My practice is exclusively representing and defending homeowners, and primarily, in fact not primarily, exclusively on behalf of homeowners who are in the appropriate position to try and save their home. When we worked on writing this mortgage foreclosure law, we had no idea, and certainly didn't have the foresight, that we would be living through the Great Recession 20 years later. And it's a different world that we're working in than when that law was written. There are many instances today where people wind up in the foreclosure process through no fault of their own, through just the circumstance of what the economy is. And in that context, my interest is where we've identified people who can salvage their home and save their home, and where it's in the best interest of the homeowner, the best interest of the community, and frankly the best interest of the lender to save the home. That's why I'm in the foreclosure process, and that's why I'm in the defense process. Now, one thing you must understand, a few just collection of tips. The foreclosure and the modification and workout process are two completely different tracks. They're separate tracks, and they operate at a separate time frame. So you have to be aware of the fact that the foreclosure litigation will proceed down a rather defined track, and even though it's a relatively long time in Illinois, because it's a 12 to 14 months for a judicial foreclosure, the modification and negotiation and workout process can be much longer. And the judges will tell you that. They will say, keep working on your modification, but I have to enter this judgment today. And that's where I get quite concerned on behalf of homeowners. Now, one of the things I've experienced with homeowners is necessarily foreclosure, when it occurs, doesn't come as a surprise. However, it comes as a moment, in some cases, of great terror, and it comes it invokes a great sense of uncertainty, because you don't know what the process is, and you don't know what's going to happen next. And some of what I want to share with you is things that make you a bit aware of what that process is while you're working on the modification. The judicial process can be a friend, but it can be a friend if you get involved early. Don't sit back and let it happen and then come in and see an attorney and say, well, I need help on the foreclosure, and what stage are you at? Well, the sale is tomorrow. It's an awful lot more difficult to save the homeowner's situation when you're late in the process than it is when you're much earlier in the process. First of all, you take advantage of the long period of time that you have in a judicial foreclosure to simultaneously work on the modification. The other reason you don't want to wait until the end of the game is oftentimes the modification rules and procedures and structures are set up in such a way that the very fact that you're on the eve of or you've had a foreclosure sale prohibits you from consideration for a modification, or at least the lender servicer would tell you that. You always want to be aware of what's going on in the process, and if you haven't hired an attorney at the beginning of the process, at least file a pro se appearance. The courts are very helpful in showing you how to set that up and how to file an appearance. If you can't afford the defense appearance fee, there are procedures for getting a pro se appearance on file without paying the fee. That will ensure that you get notice. Now, I know there are some technical times where you want to avoid service or you want to assert that service hasn't been perfected, but in the main, we're dealing with situations where people are trying to save their home. They're not trying to run away. They're not trying to avoid the situation. They just need more time. You don't want to be in a situation where you don't get notice of what's going on. So do get that appearance on file. Once that appearance is on file, then it becomes all the more significant that you get an advocate or some kind of counseling or help to work you through the process. Now, I know I'm straying a little bit off of the PowerPoint, but I tend to speak from the heart when I'm speaking, so I'll get back on the PowerPoint shortly. One comment about the judges. The judges, remember that the judges cannot give you legal advice, and they will tell you that. And my experience has been, and I practice in 8 counties in northern Illinois. I'm like a circuit rider without a horse. My horse has 4 wheels and a steering wheel. They will tell you that they cannot give you legal advice. They will be as helpful as possible in giving you fair warning of what's about to happen, but it's up to you to take the proactive action to either get advice or to find some source or resource that can guide you through the modification process. It is, in fact, the case that the 12 to 14 months can be an advantage because it gives you an opportunity to move on with making your plans and to sorting out your thoughts and to getting rid of the uncertainty and the fear factor. If you know and understand that there's a long process that before you're going to be thrown out of your house or they'd be forced to vacate your house, and during which time you can work on salvaging it, it's going to give you the opportunity to avoid those 3 o'clock in the morning watching the TV ads on how do I save my house. And that's a large part of what a defense counsel can do for you. The other thing is, of course, the defense counsel can help you avoid significant expenses that might otherwise be imposed. Rick mentioned that there are deficiency judgment issues, and although there's a reluctance on the part of the courts to enter deficiency judgments for homeowners, there's a little known issue about what happens to the obligation that floats out there that's kind of a contingent liability. Unless the judgment at the end of the foreclosure completely wipes out the possibility of the lender selling off that note to somebody who buys boxes of notes and then for 5 cents on the dollar and then comes after you for the 10 cents on the dollar, you've got to have somebody watching that at the end of the game. Even though you think you don't have a deficiency judgment, you may have a contingent liability floating around out there. Foreclosure procedures are complicated procedures, and it's just the nature of real estate and property rights that the system is somewhat more complicated than we would like to think or believe, and therefore, again, you need assistance and advice on making sure you're taking the proper steps through that procedure. One of the things that I find of great concern is that individuals pro se filling out their own forms and their own answers. I know it's appropriate, and I know that it can be done, and I know that you can get guidance in the courthouse on how to fill out answers. But oftentimes you find yourself waiving rights that, again, if you're in the category of somebody who is legitimately working to save their home, has some income even though it's reduced income, has a home with value even though it's reduced value. You don't want to put yourself in a position of filling out forms that will prejudice you when you ultimately see the foreclosure end. Let's see what's on the next slide. Well, before we introduce Nick, one final important point, and that is generally throughout the process of foreclosure, you have the right to stay in your home. We jealously guard the rights of our home ownership. It goes back to our colonial days. I don't think, I find it fascinating to look at the history of foreclosure law, because the rights of real estate and the rights of ownership in private property were the first kinds of statutes that were written in the colonial, in the colonies before we even had a constitution. And we continue to show great protective interest in property rights. And what that means for you as a homeowner in foreclosure is don't have somebody knock on the door and say, I'm here to look at your house because I'm going to sell it for the bank. We have a lot of people out there who are more than willing to go into a homeowner and say, you know, this is in foreclosure. They see it on the records, and they start acting like it's already, the game is over with. There are only a few times when you must, of course, obey the authority of the law. When the sheriff or the process server, a duly authorized deputy, serves summons, when the sheriff comes and shows an order of possession. But other than that, there's very, very few times when somebody can come in and say, you need to move out of your house, or I have the right to come and take pictures of your house, or I have the right to inspect your house. None of that. And the judges will absolutely stand by that prohibition. Final little tip, watch out for the internet. It's that great deep resource of misinformation. And there's a lot of good stuff on the internet, but the judges, I hear it every day in court, when somebody comes up to the bench, to the bar, and says, Your Honor, I have this motion. And they say, well, yeah, it looks like one of these internet motions. Be very careful of what you find on the internet. It's not generally good legal advice. There's a lot of good information, but always view it with a careful eye. Now, I've strayed into a kind of a selection of tips. I haven't gone through foreclosure procedure or process. That's not appropriate. It's an orderly process. It takes 12 to 14 months. But if at the end of the day there is just additional relief that needs to be made, you've got creditors and other obligations that are standing in the way of a modification, then what you need to do is consider the next alternative, which is bankruptcy. And my colleague, Nicholas Zambito, will share his thoughts about the bankruptcy process.
Thank you, George. My name is Nick Zambito. I'm a bankruptcy attorney with the Rogers Law Group, and I'm here to take a couple minutes to talk to you about bankruptcy. Now, when I say bankruptcy, for a lot of people that immediately brings up negative connotations, and they see it as a negative, as a last resort. But the reality of the situation is that bankruptcy can be a powerful tool to help get you on sound financial footing, and the reality is that it can often be the best tool for your situation to help you keep your home. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what a bankruptcy can do in regards to keeping your home. So first and foremost, filing a bankruptcy, any kind of bankruptcy, can stop a foreclosure proceeding. So it may not stop it indefinitely, but it certainly will buy you several months of time. Secondly, by filing a bankruptcy, by clearing up other financial matters, it can put you in a better position to receive a loan modification. Like Rick was talking about, banks will look for excuses not to give you one. One of those may be you just don't earn enough, or you have too many expenses. Filing a bankruptcy can eliminate some of those expenses or consolidate them into one payment and make it so that you are a lot more attractive. You look a lot better to get a loan modification. And the third part is even if you don't qualify for a loan modification, maybe getting rid of some of those bills and some of those other expenses will put you in a financial position where now you can afford your mortgage. So that better? Okay. So when we say it can stop a foreclosure, what does that mean? Well, when you file a bankruptcy, any kind of bankruptcy, the bankruptcy court imposes an order. It's basically a wall between you and your creditors. It says that your creditors can't take any action against you to collect a debt. That means they can't call you, they can't send you letters, they can't sue you, and that includes a foreclosure. So what that means is that wherever you are in the foreclosure process, filing a bankruptcy will stop that foreclosure. Now, having said that, the best way to save your home using a bankruptcy is to file the bankruptcy before the foreclosure auction. It's much easier to preserve your home and stay in it before the auction. If you wait until the house has been sold at an auction, a bankruptcy may not be the best option to try and save your house. And again, like we were talking about, what a bankruptcy will do for you, depending on what kind of bankruptcy you file, it can wipe out certain kinds of debts. That would include credit cards or medical bills or personal loans, things along those lines. Once those are out of the picture, maybe now your income is sufficient to qualify you for a loan modification. The other option you have in bankruptcy is a consolidation and repayment plan. Maybe getting all those bills into one place and lowering your payment. Again, now you're in a position where you qualify for a loan modification. And even if you don't, maybe you don't need a loan modification. Maybe if you go through the bankruptcy process and get rid of those other expenses, now you can afford to make your mortgage payment every month. Another unique feature of bankruptcy is it's called a lien strip. And what a lien strip will do for you is, under certain circumstances, if you have a second mortgage on your property and your first mortgage is more than the value of your home, which for many people it is, especially the way property values have been going. So you have a first mortgage, it's worth more than the value of your home. You also have a second mortgage. Under certain circumstances, you can file a bankruptcy that will allow you to pay off a percentage of that second mortgage over a period of 5 years and no more. So so for example, if you have a second mortgage of about $30,000, perhaps over 5 years you can get into a payment of $3,000 over 5 years with no interest, and then at the end of that 5 years, the remaining 90% is discharged and the lien is gone. So that's a very powerful tool if you have a second mortgage and you meet the right qualifications. You can use a Chapter 13 bankruptcy to eliminate up to 90% of that second mortgage and get that much closer to having some equity in your home. And the other thing about a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is that it's a consolidation and a repayment plan. So if you file a Chapter 13, they're going to take what you're behind on your mortgage and your arrears, and they're going to put that into a repayment plan with the court. So the nice thing about that is the lenders don't have a say in that. If you're qualified and you can afford to make the payments to the court every month, the lender can't say no. If you can afford to do that, then you pay the court every month and you pay your mortgage every month, and that's all the lender has to say about it. So it says up there, when speaking to a bankruptcy attorney, and I'll tell you right up front, is this something you can do on your own? Can you file a bankruptcy on your own? Yes, you can. My advice would be to be careful. It's not hard to make a mistake or misfile something or file the wrong documents, and you can find yourself kicked out of the bankruptcy. I would always recommend talking to an attorney. Even if it's just to talk to an attorney, you can almost always get a free consultation, find out what your options are. There's no pressure to actually sign any documents, but I would think it'd be a good idea to talk to an attorney and find out what your options are. Now, when you do talk to an attorney, make sure they know what your specific situation, what your options would be in a Chapter 13. We already talked about that a little bit. It's a consolidation and a repayment plan. Again, if you meet all the right criteria and you can afford to do so, the lenders can't say no. You get put into a repayment plan. You can also have the option of, like I said, getting rid of a large percentage of that second mortgage. There's also a Chapter 7. Now, Chapter 7 will eliminate certain debts completely with no repayment, and that includes things like your credit cards, any medical bills, personal loans, things of that nature. Now, this is what I was talking about when you say you can put yourself in a good position to either afford your mortgage or be in a better position to get a loan modification. The only thing to keep in mind with a Chapter 7 is that it will not modify your mortgage. If you are behind on your mortgage and you file a Chapter 7, you will be behind after you're done with the bankruptcy. The only difference is that if there were to be a deficiency, the Chapter 7 bankruptcy protects you from the bank or the lender coming after you for any deficiency. It eliminates your personal liability. So it's just something to keep in mind. The other thing we have up there is Chapter 20, and what that is it's doing a Chapter 7 and then a Chapter 13 in succession. So what that will do is the Chapter 7 will eliminate a lot of those debts you have. It'll wipe out a lot of those debts, and then the Chapter 13 will put you into a repayment plan on your mortgage, which by eliminating all those other debts, it means you have to pay back a lot less over 5 years. It can make it affordable if it's not to begin with. And then we also talked a little bit about the lien stripping. It doesn't apply to everyone. There are certain qualifications you have to meet, but if you do speak with an attorney and you do have a second mortgage, be sure to bring it up and find out what your options are, simply because it's a good process. It can eliminate 90% of that second mortgage. So, and if there's one other thing I'd like to just finish with and reiterate from what Rick and George were saying is that don't wait. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be for a bankruptcy attorney to help you. And like I said, if you're going to use a bankruptcy to try and save your home, it's very important to try and get that filed before a foreclosure auction. So the sooner you go see an attorney or the sooner you get advice, the better off you'll be. And I'd like to turn it back over to Rick now for just a few closing remarks.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. Just in closing, the best foreclosure prevention strategy as written, learn about the potential benefits and the pitfalls of loan modification and foreclosure defense and bankruptcy and short sales. Often you have to coordinate those different disciplines to get the very best result for the homeowner. Do your homework and seek out information on whatever areas might be most helpful to your circumstances. You may not even know which disciplines might be most helpful to your circumstances until you talk to a knowledgeable attorney or advocate. Take advantage of the free consultations offered by most law firms. Be proactive, don't delay, and don't give up. Thank you.
Certainly, we thank all of our presenters for such a job well done. We're going to take time now for questions and answers. We need to ask, I guess, a little bit of a favor. If you have a question, let's be as direct as possible with the question. This is not a time for dialogue, so we just want to get your question and try to get you an answer. The presenters will be around after we are done here. Everyone will be around for a while. If you have some personal question that you need to ask them directly, you can get their cards, phone numbers if you'd like to talk to someone here. So we will now begin with the question and answering period. We also have translators available, so if you have a question that you need to ask in a language other than English, we should have someone that can also assist with that. Okay? Okay. This gentleman.
What's going on with Chase? Why would President Obama nominate Bill Daley to be his chief of staff when he is, Bill Daley, as I understand it, somewhat head of Chase, if you will? Could someone perhaps maybe, and will this affect some of the stuff, that some of these programs, the Chicago International?
Okay, I guess I need to ask another favor. Let's try and confine the questions to something you didn't understand in the presentation or something that was not covered in the presentation. Okay, ma'am.
State's Attorney's Office, I work for Waukegan Public Schools with a lot of the parents, and we'll have a lot of counsel with this. I would ask, do you ever come back out to do a training where you help the parents fill out the forms?
Yes and no. Now, actually, we partner, and I guess I should say that, we do partner with a couple of other state agencies, namely the Illinois Housing and Development Authority and also the Illinois Department of Professional and Financial Regulation. I think to date we've done about 14 events over the last year and a half where we are out, our counselors come out, a number of lenders come out with their negotiators, and we have not come to Waukegan. We will be in Des Plaines on the 29th, and I can give you the address shortly. That's also available on all three of those websites that I just mentioned. And I think our next event will be Springfield.
Based on the high percentage of parents in Waukegan, a lot of parents are losing their homes. You know, we're having problems with the schools with, you know, these parents moving around so much because as they lose their homes, they're going into other homes to stay with those relatives. You know, they're changing schools and everything. What is the chance that you would come to Waukegan? Because there's a big need here.
Okay, well, now we're here today, and we're happy to come back. That's not a problem. So we'd be more than happy to see when we can get an event scheduled. It does take several months, so this being January, it probably wouldn't be before the spring, but we would be more than happy either somewhere right in Waukegan or very close by, okay? Or North Chicago. And you know, I've got to say one thing in respect to some of the other vendors that are here. Now, the Attorney General's office does not endorse or, you know, work with any private entities, okay? So, not to disagree with anything that's been said, but I just want to be clear, even though that we're on the same panel together, we are not working together with other vendors and entities that are here today, okay? Anybody else for the Attorney General while I'm up? Yes, sir.
What she was saying was because we're getting so many people becoming homeless that the school are now having to, with the state, you know, No Child Left, you know, having to educate them and stuff, and they're finding themselves moving from place to place to place. We're having to provide transportation for them and all this stuff, but they need help. You know, going to Des Plaines, going to Springfield, you know, are good advocates, but you know, they need help up here. Is there any way to get a form for them, you know, your office to come up into this area, you know, within the next 2 or 3 months?
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to come out and do a presentation for the school district or for your school, and I will give you my card before I leave, so please contact me. I'd be more than happy to do that. In the meantime, the guide that I mentioned earlier does offer some resources. The Illinois Department of Human Services has a program throughout the state, it's usually by county, that does offer some mortgage payment assistance, some rental payment assistance, security deposits, and also some utility assistance too. So there's a toll-free number for them as well. Again, we try to promote things that are going to be at no cost to you. Not that there is not a point in time that you need an attorney. There will be a time that you definitely need an attorney, and some of the services that were mentioned, only an attorney can do for you. But I guess our feeling is that if you can't afford to pay the mortgage, it's difficult to pay for other services too. So we recommend going with the no-cost route initially. Not to say that that will cure everything, but at the same time, in all fairness, try to go the no-cost route first. So some of that legal assistance that I mentioned that's in the guide is available, etc. And I would be more than happy to come back and talk more about anything related to housing or foreclosure. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you.
I just want to say that we will work with the AG's office and others to have another session like this. And so, as she said, it will take a little while to schedule it, but we'll start working with her right away to get a date. And as soon as we have one, we'll release it through a press release, and it'll be posted on our website as well.
Question for fair housing. Also working with Waukegan schools, a lot of our parents and our students that need to be in a handicap accessible apartment, but
No, this is not fair housing. This is affordable housing.
affordable housing. But they also have funding to make the home handicap accessible. And a lot of the families are now living with other family members, but they're not on the mortgage. They're living with them, and so the home that they're living in is not handicap accessible, requiring one of my students just be carried down 3 flights to catch the bus to go to school.
Yeah.
How does it work for funding for that where they're not on the mortgage, but living in that home with that family member?
Well, ultimately, that's a challenge that we do see, you know, quite often. Our rehabilitation loan program, it does expand onto disability improvements, so that is something that we can use those dollars for. For that specific situation, you know, I hate to say unfortunately, but our programs are limited to the actual homeowner. So if the homeowner is willing to participate to help out a family member that's living, then yes, that is something that we can entertain if eligible.
Okay, and
Does that answer?
Have to have lived in that occupy that home for a certain time period before they qualify for the loan?
Well, it has to be owner occupied, so they have to be actually living in the home at the time that we do the rehab loan. But yeah, we do have dollars for that. It doesn't have to be your furnace is blowing up, we need to fix that. If it needs to be handicap accessible, we can do that too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, also, the city of Waukegan, city of North Chicago, both have their own housing rehabilitation program. So if you're within the boundaries of one of those municipalities, you will either need to contact CDBG office of City of Waukegan or CDBG office North Chicago. This is just for a county outside of those two municipalities. Okay? Additional questions? Okay, I guess they did a really good job of explaining, so we are all on our way. Help us thank them, please.